All right, ladies and gentlemen, the moment we have been waiting for from the Milwaukee Mile. Richie Joplin and Chuck Sweeting on the front row, Tim St. Jean and Michael Whiting on the second, Jess Chambers, Derek Schilling on the third row, Mark Nelson, Don Warren on the fourth, Terry James and DJ Kenner round out the top 10. Stephen Linder starting in 11th next to Kevin Bruner in 12th. Ryan Warp in 13th, Clinton Chambers in 14th, Gil Guac in 15th, Darrell Whitford in 16th. Jack Wilson, Mark Dantuma, James Lacey, and Gerald Poole round out the top 20. Mike Burgess, Les Benz, and John Wyatt round out the 23-car field here tonight. Everybody gets stacked up on the front stretch. Pace car is rolling. All 23 drivers looks like did take to the grid. These flat tracks, every driver has a different way of attacking the turns. That can make for a little bit of chaos on corner entry and a lot on exit. Man, the early laps on cold tires and the late laps on old tires, that's when things get exciting. You'll be able to tell who's conserving pretty quickly. All right, pace car dives in, and the green flag flies. They are down and away at the Milwaukee Mile. And Chuck Sweeting off the line gets the nose ahead. Richie, though, sends it deep through 1 and 2. And Tim St. Jean already on the attack. Now, we've mentioned it several times. Tim has always started from the back, doesn't often qualify. When he qualifies, he tends to have bad luck. Man, if he has good luck tonight from where he started, Richie may be in trouble. Field already quickly getting single file. Derek Schilling stuck on the outside. Still a lot of side-by-side back in the back part of the pack. Mark Dantuma, who was fastest in warm-up, but did not qualify, starting back in 18th. Will he be able to march his way forward? Chuck Sweeting in third has the fastest lap so far. He was one of the fastest in practice. Jess Chambers lurking in fourth. Mark Nelson currently in fifth. Richie Joplin, so far 6 races this season, 4 wins. Could tonight, though, be the end of that? It looked like Richie may have had a little bobble coming through 1 and 2 that time. Tim St. Jean still right there on Richie's back bumper. Chuck right there with him as well. DJ Kenner starting to move up into ninth, and Jack Wilson has come in. Looks like Jack has picked up a black flag. And Chuck Sweeting was peeking underneath Tim for second. Mark Nelson up 2 spots now into 5th. Brian Warp up 3 spots into 10th. Mike Burgess up 4 spots into 17th. Gerald Poole up 2 into 18th. John Wyatt up 4 into 19th. Field already starting to spread out, but remember, this track does eat the tires. Be able to tell who's conserving and who's not very quickly as these tires start to go away on these cars. The drivers that were conservative early on will start marching toward the front. Don Warren taking 6th place now. Terry James slipping back in the early going, back to 11. Now is Steven Linder on his bumper. Kevin Bruner, second in points. Back in 13th. He needed a good run tonight. See if he can make up some ground in the long run. Hey, good evening, David. How are you? Jack Wilson has served his penalty, back out on track, but a couple laps down. Tim St. Jean still holding on to second with Chuck on his bumper. Jess Chambers, Mark Nelson not far behind. Ten laps in, and Richie has already pulled a 3/4 of a second lead on Tim. But again, this likely to come down to who saves their tires the best. The real question is going to be how many drivers take the risk of a green flag pit stop. They have enough fuel to go the distance tonight. Will they come in and change tires midway for an advantage? As we've got a battle for second, Chuck looks underneath Tim St. Jean. And Chuck Sweeting now to second place. About 1.1 seconds behind the leader. Will he have enough to run Richie down? Ryan Ward moved up early, up into 10th, up 3 spots, closing in on 9th place, DJ Kenner. Mark Nelson starting to peek underneath Jess Chambers. Sends it down into turn 1, Mark Nelson to 4th. Mark D'Antimo did not qualify, but was fastest in warm-up. Already up 6 spots now into 12th. As we've got one slow and low. Looks like Jack Wilson getting out of the way, coming out of turn 2. Richie Joplin's lead is starting to shrink as Chuck Sweeting is getting closer. Chuck now just 9/10 of a second back. Mark D'Antimo back in 12th, closing in on Terry James in 11th. DJ Kenner has now moved up into 8th, setting his sights on Michael Whiting in 7th. This is definitely the kind of track and the situation that benefits the Iceman. Long green flag runs really help him. Lap times at the moment still holding, but likely to start seeing some times dropping off significantly in the next 5 to 10 laps. Those right side tires in this abrasive track, man, they are going to wear quickly. Colin Barr. Mark Dantuma now up into 11th and closing in on Ryan Ward. Richie Joplin's lead starting to shrink as Chuck Sweeting closes in. Tim St. Jean in third, but Mark Nelson on the move. Mark down to the bottom and quickly takes third place. Don Warren currently in 6th, is closing the gap now on just Chambers. DJ Kenner, meanwhile, looks to the inside on Michael Whiting. Derek Schilling right behind, closing in. Can he take advantage? Couldn't get to him that time, but Schilling is getting closer. Brian Warp currently in 10th, is closing just a little bit on Schilling and this group ahead. Meanwhile, the battle up front is really heating up. Chuck Sweeting has caught the leader. And Chuck just set the fastest lap so far tonight, 31.66. Chuck obviously conserving a little bit of tire in the early laps of this one, and it is starting to pay off. Mark Nelson in third, about 3 seconds behind that lead battle at the moment. Tim St. Jean, Jess Chambers still there. Don Warren closing in as well. And DJ Kenner in 7th, closing in on that group ahead. Mark Dantuma at 11, just 1 second behind Ryan now. Terry James back in 12th, Stephen Linder in 13th. Clinton Chambers currently in 14th, Gil Walk in 15th. Kevin Bruner, last week's winner, has slipped back to 16th. Gerald Poole now in 17th. Mike Burgess currently in 18th. John Wyatt, whoa! John Wyatt, Jack Wilson get together. And the first caution of the night. And I bet we see some cars in this time Let's take another look at that incident. Looking down from the chopper, and there you see John gets on the brakes just a little bit earlier than Jack. They both go for a spin, but Wyatt recovers more quickly. Hey, good evening, Kamar. And looks like Richie's going to lead them in. And I do believe we're going to see everybody in this time. I stand corrected. John Wyatt stays out. Jack Wilson also staying out. He had gone a lap down. I expect we'll see both of them in next time by. Mark Nelson won the race off pit road. Richie Joplin coming out in second. Tim St. Jean coming out in third. Chuck Sweeting slips back into sixth. All right, Jack Wilson comes in, but John Wyatt is going to stay out. That is a gutsy call. Looks like most of the field did take on 4 tires versus John on old tires. Well, it does seem like a good time to get a little bit loud here at the Milwaukee Mile. So when the green flag drops, I'm going to shut up and let you guys crank up the volume and listen to all the power. All right, here they come. Pace car dives in. And the green flag flies. Crank it up, y'all. Slipping back. Jess Chambers now up into second. Richie Joplin in third. The Iceman in fourth. Chuck Sweeting now in fifth. John Wyatt's car looks like it may be going away on those old tires. set the fastest lap so far. Second in points, Kevin Bruner slipping back further, now in 18th, as we've got a couple of battles. Mark Dantuma now up into 9th as he comes by Wyatt. Terry James looking under John Wyatt for 10th. Derek Schilling starting to recover. He lost some ground in the early going, but is now back up into 6th. Mark Nelson did get a little breathing room here in the early, right after the restart. Richie Joplin now in 2nd, but Mark just set the fastest lap. 31.64 as he tries to open that gap even further. Now we saw Chuck Sweeting on that first run. It was about 15 laps into the run when that car really came alive and he started making moves and was able to run Richie down easily. Is he conserving again here? Chuck did just run a 31.62 though. And Jack Wilson has had a problem. He has towed it in. We will not see the caution. There's Jack. Looks like coming out of turn 4. Oh, he was low, got big loose into the inside wall. Mark Nelson's lead now down to half a second. Richie inching closer, but Chuck Sweeting now up into 3rd. Michael Whiting back in 8th as Mark Dantuma in 9th closing in. Terry James holding on to 10th. Ryan Warp now up into 11th. Now Ryan has a little bobble coming out of 2. Keeps his foot down though, and looks like Warp will move into 10th. Flat tracks are definitely a whole different beast than the bank tracks we often see these cars on. It is tricky getting the setup just right and getting the drive just right. Mike Burgess back in 13th, battling with Gerald Poole and Gil Guac. Kevin Bruner right there as well. 13th on back is a bit of a fight. Burgess is going to clear. Gerald may have a bit of a run out of 2. Not enough to get the nose in before they get to turn 3. Gerald not a fan of this track, but having a pretty decent run here tonight. Meanwhile, Kevin Bruner looking underneath Gil Guac. Tim St. Jean has slipped way back. Tim currently in 17th. He has lost a lot of ground. Remember, Tim qualified up front. Looked like he was going to be in the fight. But once again, Tim qualified and things just don't go his way when he does qualify. Kumar? Mark Nelson, Richie Joplin, Chuck Sweeting, all within about 0.8 of a second. Jess Chambers, DJ Kenner not far behind. Don Warren back in 6th, about 1.3 seconds back at the moment. But Derek Schilling in 7th, 1.1 seconds behind. Mark Dantuma now up into 8th. Michael Whiting right behind him in 9th. John Wyatt has gone to pit road. Apparently those old tires were a bit too much against all the fresh tires on track. And Tim St. Jean starting to move again, looks underneath Gerald. Tim now back up into 15th. Is this the start of his march to the front? And the Iceman is on the attack. DJ looking underneath Jess Chambers. DJ now to 4th. Mark Dantuma just took 7th from Derek. Wow, that was close. Dantuma did not qualify, started in 18th, but has marched his way up to 7th so far. Derek Schilling now has Michael Whiting right on the bumper as John Wyatt is rolling off pit road. Michael Whiting was in a full drift out of 2. And he's going to send it deep into 3. And Michael Whiting back up into 8th. Kevin Brenner also starting to move forward. Looking underneath Clinton Chambers now up to 12th. And don't look now. Just behind, here comes Tim St. Jean. We've got one around behind. And the caution is out. Looks like John Wyatt in trouble back behind. Coming out of turn 2 on the power, just loops it, backs it into the wall. Oh, comes back up a little too soon. Wow. And it looks like we're about to see everybody back in. Just shy of the halfway point, everybody's going to take on tires. The Mark Nelson leads everybody in. Right side's going up all the way down pit road. Now, how many of them are going to take 2 tires versus 4? Derek Schilling, right sides only. Don Warren coming out in 2nd. Looks like right side's only for Don. Mark Nelson, the first car on 4 tires off pit road. Well, this ought to make things interesting. The new top two, Derek Schilling, Don Warren took right sides only. Everybody else, 4 tires and fuel. But Schilling is coming back in. See if we can see what Derek is gonna do here. Oh, looks like Derek may have taken fuel only. He's now up for tires. He is going to have to hustle to get back out. Everybody is stacked up for the restart. Don Warren and Mark Nelson now in the front row. And here they come through 3 and 4. Pace car dives in, and the green flag flies again. Richie practically pushing Don down the front stretch. Don clears, opening the door for Richie underneath Mark Nelson. And Richie now to second. Chuck Sweeting now looks for third. And don't look now, Kevin Bruner up in the mix. Tim St. Jean also back up into the top 10. Everybody trying to fight their way forward. That being on that outside is tricky. As the Iceman moves into 4th. And Mark D'Antuma shoots under Mark Nelson for 5th. A drag race down the front straightaway. Mark D'Antuma now into 5th. Mark Nelson cannot get down. Now Kevin, whoa, almost had some contact as Kevin Bruner's underneath. Kevin Bruner coming in tonight second in points as Richie Joplin takes the lead. Chuck Sweeting right behind quickly into second. Chuck just set the fastest lap, 31.57. At top 7, all still right there, less than 2 seconds apart. Everybody's still in the fight. John, yep, that does happen, buddy. Oh, Richie went into turn 1 a bit high there. Most of the field now single file. Tim St. Jean slips back into 12th. He had made his way back into the top 10. Gerald Poole back battling with Mike Burgess for 14th. Richie Joplin, Chuck Sweeting still nose to tail. Don Warren, DJ Kenner not far behind. Kevin Bruner back in 6th, trying to close that gap in the points on Richie after the win last week. Ryan Warp now moving up into the top 10. Stephen Lindner on the outside in 11th. Here comes St. Jean again. Let Tim look fast in the early going, but has not been able to build a run since that first caution. If this thing stays green, though, he could make his way back toward the front. Don Warren in 3rd, still stays with the top 2. DJ losing a little bit of ground as Mark Nelson now looks back under Kevin Bruner. Mark powers it out of 4 on the bottom back into turn 1. It is so easy to make a slight mistake here, just a little too much power. You open the door, the car behind can duck underneath. None of these drivers can afford to lose concentration for even a second. And Richie Joplin, man, he has got Chuck Sweeting all over his bumper. Don Warren still right there within striking distance. The moment the top 2 start battling, Don is in this fight. This may come down to which one of these 3 conserves their tires the best. Hey, good evening, Paulo. Ryan Warp currently in 10th, but he is closing on 9th place Michael Whiting. Jess Chambers currently running in 8th. Kevin Bruner now in 7th. Mark Nelson has gotten back to Mark Dantuma's bumper. Tim St. Jean still lurking back in 11th. Stephen Lindner in 12th. Clinton Chambers in 13th. Gerald Poole on to 14th. Gil Guant currently in 15th. Terry James in 16th. Daryl Whitford in 17th. James Lacey in 18th. Derek Schilling in 19th. Mike Burgess, Les Bentz out early. Jack Wilson back in 22nd, and John Wyatt also out early. This is not something you often see on a flat track. The top 3 nose to tail all the way around. Don Warren, I believe, under that last caution, took right sides only. The top two took 4 tires, where they'd only been on those lefts for about 15, 20 laps. And those left side tires not getting as much use here tonight. He might be able to hold on for a while longer. However, that top 3 likely to end up in some lap traffic, as it looks like Derek Schilling not far ahead. But Derek does have a bit of damage. Mark Nelson now up into 4th, about 1.8 seconds back. DJ Kenner in 5th, Mark D'Antuma in 6th. Jess Chambers taking 7th from Kevin Bruner. Bruner picked up some ground on pit road, but appears to be losing a bit now. Michael Whiting in 9th, Ryan Bork in 10th. Ryan still inching closer, but not gaining as much ground as he was earlier. Meanwhile, Tim St. Jean and Stephen Linder battling it out back behind. The leaders get past the lap car of Derek Schilling without any issues. That top 3 still nose to tail. Mark Nelson is inching closer to that top 3 as well. And the caution is out for Chuck Sweeting and Richie Joplin. And wow. Not only a big shakeup for the race, but for the championship. Let's see what happened. All right, looking down from the chopper, Chuck gets a peek underneath, but just pushes up into Richie and they get together. Tap coming out of turn 4, and a hard hit for Richie. And that will shake up not only the running order, but that's going to shake up the championship as well. Richie was leading the points coming into tonight. All right, Jess Chambers is going to be the first off pit road, followed by Ryan Warp. Stephen Linder, Tim St. Jean, Mark Nelson, Richie Joplin's going to come out in 7th. Don Warren in 8th, Derek Schilling in 9th, the Iceman in 10th. Gil Guac did not come in. He assumes the lead. Kevin Bruner came in tonight second in points, currently sitting in 13th. Richie Joplin sits in 7th. Kevin needs to make up some ground and get past Richie to make up any ground in the points. Remember, just 3 races to go after tonight. All right, here they come through 3 and 4. Gil Guac in control. Pace car dives in, and here they come. The green flag flies. Gil looked like a bobble under power, but he gets it going. Jess Chambers may have a run up on the high side. And the caution is out behind. Michael Whiting around in turn 2. Looks like Clinton Chambers also involved. Let's take a look. There's Clinton on the high side. Oh, looked like a bit of a checkup from Michael Whiting. Looks like there may have been a checkup in that outside line. Whiting had a bit of a run. Has to check up. Clinton had nowhere to go. And Michael Whiting ends up in the wall. Likely to see this restart go single file. That's definitely going to help Gil Guac out. And folks, don't forget to come back about 5 minutes after the race and join in on the fun as the Unicorn goes trucking across the U.S. Michael Whiting and Derek Schilling both still on pit road, getting some repairs. Looks like they will both make it out and maintain the lead lap. So we'll still have 19 cars on the lead lap. They will go single file on the restart. Gil Guac has not been to victory lane yet this season. Could tonight be his night? This single file restart definitely going to help. All right, pace car dives in, and the green flag flies again. And it looked like the cars behind a little slow off the line. Hey, good evening, John. 22 laps to go. Gil Guac out front. Jess Chambers behind. Tim St. Jean now back into the top 5. But here comes Richie Joplin. Steven Linder trying to fight back up top. Gil looking a little bit squirrely coming out of 2, but holds on to it just right to his bumper. Ryan Warp sitting there in 3rd looking for an opening. Laps to go at the Milwaukee Mile. Richie Joplin, Mark Nelson, 5th and 6th. Stephen Caution. Derek Schilling involved. And Derek is having a rough night. We should see him stack back up for this restart. Let's see what happened to Derek. All right, there's Schilling as he holy cow. That car was a bit hurt already. Somehow I don't think he touched the wall. That car was already broke, missing the rear spoiler. Loses the back end coming out and doesn't touch a thing. Nice save. Gil Guac still has the lead. Derek Schilling has brought it to pit road. Remember, no Motorsports, they do not have a fast repair. So his team's going to have to do as much as possible, as quick as possible. Jack Wilson getting another of his laps back. A rough start to this one with a black flag early was a huge setback, but he stayed in the fight, keeps picking up spots here and there. All right, the lights are back out on the pace car. They will stack back up side by side. And man, it is going to be a fight to the finish on this one. Just over 15 to go. All right, here they come out of turn 4. The pace car dives in, and the green flag flies again. Oh, and some bumping up front. Gil Guac, Jess Chambers bouncing off each other, and the caution is out again. Michael Whiting involved. John, I am so sorry for your loss, buddy. checks up into turn one. Taking a look from the chopper. Nothing Michael Whiting could do. That inside line just accordions and it gets into Gerald. So Gil Guac still has the lead. Jess Chambers in second, Ryan Warp in third, Tim St. Jean in fourth, Richie Joplin in fifth. John, just tune in about 10 minutes after the race. Watch some trucking and have some laughs, buddy. You'll feel better. And if you need anything, reach out. And we will likely go back to a single file restart on this one. Yep, lights are out. We are going single file on the restart. They'll have just over 10 to go. These late cautions definitely helping Gil Guac out. Could we see his first win of the season? All right, here we go. Pace car about to drop in. Gil in control. And the green flag flies again. Gil is away. And while Jess sets up to the high side quickly, trying to get that big run. And he may have it out of turn two, Jess to the inside. Back into turn three, Jess Chambers to the lead. Tim St. Jean now up to third, has Richie right on his bumper. Ryan Warp, Mark Nelson still in the mix. Jess Chambers trying to pull away, opening up a gap as Tim looks to the inside. Tim trying to get a run to the inside on Gil for second. Whoa, Tim is way wide, lost a lot of ground. Richie now to third as Jess Chambers just set the fastest lap of the night. And the caution is out. Looks like Chuck Sweeting involved. Jess Chambers had just set the fastest lap, 31.48. I think he's been sandbagging tonight. All right, there's Joe. The problem started up ahead with Tim. There's Tim St. Jean we had seen. He had lost some ground. He was trying to get back down, but they were three wide. He gets a bump, sends him sideways, and stacks the field up right behind. And the field is shook up again. Jess Chambers, Gil Guanc, Richie Joplin, Ryan Warp, Mark Nelson, your top 5. Don Warren, Mark Dantuma, DJ Kenner, Stephen Lindner, and Kevin Bruner round out the top 10. Derek Schilling gets waved back to the lead lap, and he has his car looking a lot better. The first half of this race, about what we expect for Milwaukee, but the second half of this race has been eventful. And we ain't done yet, folks. All right, lights are back out. They will stack up for the restart. Jess Chambers in control on the restart. Gil Guanc on the high side. Both of these drivers looking for their first win of the season. It's going to be a hard fight to the end. Pace car dives to pit road, and the green flag flies. 6 to go at the line. And Jess quickly clears traffic into the lead. Richie now underneath Gil for second. Mark Nelson has a run out of 2. Back down into turn 3, right? Caution! The caution is back out. Let's see if we can see what brought this one out. Taking a look at the Iceman as they go. Holy cow. There was some bumping up ahead. They were 3 wide, and DJ gets a little bit of a bump, ends up sideways. Looking down from the chopper, a little bit of bumping up ahead. Don Warren comes across the nose of Dantuma. Wow. And somehow everybody managed to save it. Well, that was eventful, but it's about to get even wilder. Likely to go to a single file restart here. A single file restart will definitely benefit Jess Chambers in this situation. Richie Joplin still sits in second. Mark Nelson in third. Gil Guanc, Ryan Warp round out the top 5. Can Jess hold off Richie Joplin? Richie has been the dominant driver this season, 4 wins out of 6 races. Last week, though, Kevin Brunner went to victory lane. Can we see another different winner this week? We're about to find out in just 2 laps. All right, pace car dives in. Jess Chambers in control. Green flag back in the air. 2 to go. And Mark Nelson already to the inside for second. This is exactly what Jess Chambers wants to see. As they battle behind, Jess can pull away. Mark slides up into second. Richie peeking underneath. And here they come, the white flag. One more time around. The top 3 still single file. Gil Guak back and forth. Jess opens up a gap out of 2. And through 3 and 4, one last time, Jess Chambers will get it done. He will win at the Milwaukee Mile. And he set the fastest lap of the night on the final lap. Mark Nelson holds on for second. Richie Joplin coming home in third. And let's talk to our top 3, starting with Richie. Richie, I know 3rd place probably ain't where you want to be, but after last week, you got to be happy.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I'm not too happy with it, but I take it. It's a good points day. I led some laps. The setup wasn't just there for me. Still a little bit too snug for me. I need a little bit more rotation off. Yeah, I'm a little frustrated, but I'm good. It's all good.
Good. You still have the good points lead, and overall a great night.
Yeah, it's a good night, and I shouldn't be so frustrated with the 3rd place finish, but I'm a little competitive, and I don't mean to sound bad and stuff. But it's good 3rd place for Navy Joe Coffee and Ally Wheel Repair and Flaming Karma Design and Outlier Setup Company. I'll take it.
A great job tonight, buddy. Congrats.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
D. Mark Nelson coming home in second. Mark, I've seen good restarts and I've seen great restarts, and I think you just pulled off a great final restart tonight.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Doug. I seem to be getting, honestly, the setup that I used on this car tonight was one of the most excellent short track setups I've ever used. I could just get so good off the corners and beat these guys, and restarts are really good too. I just used the setup that they gave me, and I was like, all right, I'll use it. And Richie had started in front of me a couple times before there, and he'd kind of thrown that block, and I was like, this is it. This is the last restart. I'm going for it.
Well, it definitely seemed to work out in your favor, man. That was a heck of a move, and it definitely paid off. Man, it was quite a battle back and forth throughout the race for you.
It was. I had a really fun time. I'm usually not a factor on short tracks, but flat tracks for sure. They're just not my thing. So it was nice to run well. A couple of things I would have liked to have done differently, like that last pit stop. I probably should have taken right side tires and maybe been able to pull away like I did earlier in the race. And all the cautions kept coming out there, and the last bit, they were just, I was running out of time. So happy for Jess though, and happy to have a another good run and not wreck anybody. I had 0 incidents, which hasn't happened this season yet.
Well, man, it was an awesome finish and a great job, buddy. Congratulations.
Thanks, Doug.
Unfortunately, no Jess Chambers, but congrats to him. An awesome win. And folks, don't forget, come back here in about 5-10 minutes. Hey, good evening, Reed. Just finishing up, but come back here in about 5 minutes and you'll see the Unicorn Trucking. Have some laughs and tune in. Thank you guys so much for being here. Hope y'all had as much fun as we did. Have a good one, y'all.